Good evening folks, welcome back to the channel. Most of you who follow these sort of van life YouTube channels will probably remember that about 3 weeks ago I'm going to refer to it as what I call National Van Life YouTuber Jackery Day, where everyone who seems to have a van on YouTube reviewed one of these. If you don't know what this is the Jackery. Well, this one is the Jackery Explorer 500 and that's what this video is going to be. Now the reason we're a little bit behind with our video is because we just wanted to make sure we took some proper time to fully test it out rather than just get it out of the box and say this is what you get, it's brilliant, it does this, this and this. We wanted to actually make sure that what we're telling you is correct, because what most of you will also remember is about 6 months ago to a year ago, every single van lifer YouTube said go and buy a POWEROAK, which we are a massive fan of. If you follow the channel you know we've got one, well two actually, and they're brilliant and we highly rated it. So, when Jackery contacted us and said, would you review our products, our initial reaction was really, well, we don't really need to because we like the POWEROAK, we're happy with that. So we emailed them back and said, look, it's not really for us, we've already got the POWEROAK, but if you're happy for us to do a direct comparison, then sure, send us out your product. And they said, yep, we're happy with that. Now, to me, that says they're confident. So then we got interested. So they've sent us this one. This is, like I say, it is the 500, so it is the equivalent to the POWEROAK AC50 or AC50S, which is the one we'll be comparing it against. So yeah, let's have a look, see what it does. And if you're panicking that this video is going to be really boring and Emily's not going to be in it, she is here. She's just having a little kip. So I'm sure she'll pop up with some useful insights throughout the video because she has done a very thorough in-depth review of the shape and handle orientation.
That's right.
Which is vitally important. Right.
It's actually the most important part, I feel.
Orientation, yes. Right, so let's crack on. So if by some miracle you've never seen one of these before, we'll just quickly go over exactly what it is, what's in it and what it does. So it's essentially a giant power pack, or some people like to call it a solar generator. But essentially what it is it's a massive battery, and then you've got various different ports that you can plug your stuff into, charge it up or run it. This one, it has inside of it, so inside of this unit, this one, there's a so inside of here there's a 518 watt hour battery, which is the equivalent of about 24 amp hours, roughly, lithium battery. There's a 500 watt pure sine wave inverter with a 1000 watt peak, and I'll go over that in a second. And there's a solar MPPT charge controller. So there's quite a lot going on just inside the unit. You've got 3 USB ports on the front. You've got like a cigarette lighter type 12 volt port there, maximum of 10 amps. You've got 2 little 12 volt, you can usually plug little things in like lights into those there. You've got your main charging input, and then over here you've got one single 230 volt plug socket, and then up here you've got your display. So everything on this is on the front, except for here you've got a flashlight, and if you hold it you've got an SOS flashlight, and then a cooling fan comes out the side there. So essentially that's the main unit itself. So there's 3 main ways you can charge the thing up.
Whoa. I know this one. There are 3 ways to charge this bad boy up. One is via mains charger, so that could be in your house, or if you're on electric hookup and you've got plug sockets in your van, you can charge it from that. I knew that one. 2, solar. The sun does wonders. You can charge it with the solar panels that they kindly give you that comes with it. Thank you, handy assistants. Ta-da!
More on the panels in a minute.
And thirdly, you can charge it through 12 volt, which is like your cigarette lighter. Plus, you get this snazzy little bag to keep your wires in.
Nice.
Ta-da! That, ladies and gents, is the 3 ways that you can charge the Jackery.
It does also say on the box there's a 4th way, which is to use a solar generator to charge a solar generator, which you can do, but to me seems a bit odd. Anyway. So the reason we liked the product initially is because when I was building the van, I was very much aware that if there was a problem with our electrical system, we were stuffed basically. So for me, or for us, it is a perfect solution. It's an ideal backup. So if there is an issue, and if you followed us as we travelled through Europe and we broke down, we relied 100% on our little solar generator when our van broke down. And because all our stuff was 12 volt, it meant we could take our VPN protected Wi-Fi, Emily's laptop, which we only had a 12 volt charger. We took that with us and we could still run all of our stuff. So for us, a backup power source, or a backup of anything in your van really, is vital. It's also great for people that are into camping, people with small vans that do little weekends away, fishermen, outdoorsy people, like when I go wildlife photography, I can take that with me and I can still run my laptop, charge my phone, all those different things that we now find essential when we're out and about, travelling about. So for us, the fact that it's portable is a massive plus, and that's where handle orientation does come into things, but we'll get onto that in a minute. But the fact that we can take it outside of our van, sit under the shade of a tree or sit in the hammock and still sit and do our work on our laptops is a massive plus for us. Plus it's silent, well almost silent, apart from the cooling fan there is no noise whatsoever. So compared to a petrol generator where you've got the noise and you've got the fumes, you know, people on campsites or in little wild up park-ups aren't going to want that, and we don't want that either. So we love the fact that we've got a backup source of power and we can still work outside and move it around and do what we need to do. Now in a minute I'm going to give you a load of numbers, watts and watt hours and figures and stuff that some of the more technical minded people might be interested in. But we are going to try and answer a few of the real world questions that we got asked the first time round when we reviewed the POWEROAK that people actually really seem to care about. Things like, can I run an entire van conversion with this? Will it run a fridge?
Will it run my hairdryer and my straighteners?
So the answer to Emily's question is yes and no. The Jackery will, the POWEROAK won't, and I'll get into that why in a second, because we are going to move on now to, is the Jackery better than the POWEROAK? And our very first topic is going to be all about size, weight and handles.
So you can see that they're quite similar in size, but the Jackery is a bit taller because of the handle. They weigh pretty much the same, just over 6 kilos. But most importantly, because we like to move them about and portable, it's all about the handle. So, as you can see, easy. This one, awkward. Because your hands automatically goes like that, otherwise your hand's got to be this way, or it's got to be this way, then it hits your leg like that, or it's that way. So for me, ease of carrying, Jackery. Oh, I should show you that way round really. Jackery. Non-ease of carrying, POWEROAK. Although good for weights. 6 kg right there, baby. Oh yeah. So I forgot to mention, the Jackery's longer and they're about the same width.
So I do just want to go over a few of the main differences between the two. Let me move you a bit closer so you can actually see. So the first thing that was obvious when we got them out of the box was the sheer volume of extra ports on this than there is on this. So what I mean is you've got 3 USB ports on there, 4 on here. You've got a PD port on here, you don't have one at all on here. And on here you've got 2 240 sockets instead of just the one. Plus the POWEROAK does also have wireless charging on top. So essentially in terms of capacity, they're almost identical. This one at 518 watt hours, this one at 500. This one holds a 21.6 volt battery at 24 amp hours. This one holds an 11.1 battery at 45 amp hours, roughly. The only reason I bring that up is because I'm not sure if it makes much of a difference in performance, and there is a difference which we'll get onto in a minute, so that's why I covered the different voltage batteries that are in each one. The other main difference, and this is a big one for us, is the inverter. Inside of the Jackery you've got a 500 watt inverter with a peak of 1000 watts. Inside the POWEROAK it's substantially smaller, so it's got a 300 watt inverter with a peak of only 450 watts. And this takes me back to Emily's question, can she run her straighteners? Yes on the POWEROAK, yes on the Jackery. Can she run a hairdryer? No on the POWEROAK, yes on the Jackery. And that is because of that difference in inverter. So when Emily turns her hairdryer on, it peaks at just over 1000 watts, so it instantly trips this out because it'll only peak at 450 watts, whereas the Jackery can handle that start-up voltage and then drop right down, or start-up voltage, start-up power, whatever, I don't know. Someone will correct me in the comments, I am sure of it. But anyway, the Jackery can handle it, the POWEROAK can't, so it's very important when you're looking at 240 volt appliances, you look at how many watts they use whilst they're running and what they use at peak, and it should tell you that information either on the product or you should be able to find it on the internet. As for will it run a fridge for an entire weekend, we get that question a lot, and it's going to very much depend on what fridge you've got, how long you've got it on for, how hot it is outside. So we tested these on with a 12 volt fridge that run at 35 watts, and it ran them both for hours on end, but it's not going to last you a whole weekend. This isn't a solution to running a decent fridge. If it was me and I wanted to run a fridge, I'd put it on for a couple of hours in the heat of the day and then keep the fridge in the shade out of the way. It's not going to run fridges for any long period of time, especially when you start going up to sort of the 50-60 watt fridges. And like I say, it's going to depend on the technology inside of the fridge. And as for the question of can I run an entire van conversion on it, in my opinion these are probably just a little bit too small to run a full van conversion with a water pump, diesel heater, fridge, that sort of thing. I think you should use it like we do as a backup, but for anyone with a weekend or a day van or that's camping that wants to run things, I think they're absolutely perfect. Both of these do a bigger version, so Jackery goes up to 1000 watt, the POWEROAK, they go up to over 2000 watt hours, so they do some big power packs. Now they probably will be a lot, well they definitely will be a lot better for running an entire van conversion. And for anyone that's scared of electrical work and doesn't want to go to all the hassle of working out fuses, cable size, etc, etc, they're great. My one issue with using one of these, no matter what the capacity, as a complete solution is if there's a problem with this, you've lost your entire electrical system. So what I mean by that is my system, the batteries, the MPPT, the B2B charger, they're all separate components. So if there's a problem with one, I can remove that component and I can still charge it. So say my MPPT failed, I've still got DC to DC charging from the vehicle battery, I can still plug in and hook up. Whereas this, you've lost your entire lot. Now they do both come with a 2-year warranty. The Jackery got a card to extend it to a 3-year warranty, but who knows how long you're going to have to send this off for while they look at it, see if they can repair it, and you are going to be without power. And if that happens in a foreign country, it might prove to be quite an issue. So yes, the bigger ones certainly will do a van conversion, a basic van conversion. I'm not talking like mega appliances, but bear in mind that if it breaks, you've lost the entire lot. Right, the difference in the two solar panels, so this is the one that Jackery sent us, it's a 100 watt panel, and this is the one they recommend to go with this. The solar panel we've got for the POWEROAK is a 120 watt panel, so it is a bigger capacity panel, and in a minute I'm going to go over performance, so we'll cover which one of those performs best. And finally the cost, so these both retail on Amazon. This one's they're not cheap, before I carry on, they are not cheap, but this one is $529.99, this one is $499.99, so £30 more expensive. However, if you buy the corresponding panel for each one, this panel is $259.99, the POWEROAK panel at the moment is $299.99, that's correct at time of recording. So individually this is more expensive than this, but if you buy them as a complete kit, so the panel and the power pack, the Jackery combined set is slightly cheaper than the POWEROAK set, but roughly you're looking at a very similar price tag on each of them. So Emily's basically, she's disappeared, because obviously we're talking about the boring technical stuff now, but evidence of her is all over the place. So the next thing I want to talk about is performance. Now this is probably the most important thing that people are looking at, and to be completely honest, between the two there's not much in it, but there is a little bit. So first thing I did when we got them, well when we got this one, is run them both down to absolutely nothing, plugged them both in at the wall, charged them back up. They both came in quicker than the manufacturer's specified time, so they both outperformed on that level. The POWEROAK charged up quicker by about 10 minutes, which compared to what the manufacturers say, I think they say 6.5 for the POWEROAK, 7.5 for the Jackery, they both came in under, and they was very, very close. Right, let's look at the solar panel then that they sent us. So this is the Jackery panel. Now, when I first got this and it first came in the box, I thought, wow, that is big compared to the POWEROAK panel, and I thought it was going to be an issue because it's quite a chunk. But when it came to actually getting the panels out, setting them up and testing them, because we did do quite a thorough solar test to see which one charged the quickest and which panel was the more efficient, the design of this actually won me over, and I much prefer this now to the POWEROAK panel, and the reason being it's just so much easier to set up. It's only in 2 halves as opposed to the POWEROAK one, which is in 4 sections, which means you've only got 2 legs to worry about, which means you unfold it, pop out the 2 legs, bang, it's down, it's done. It's very, very, very easy to move on your own, whereas the POWEROAK one, you kind of pick it up by 2 legs and it sort of folds into itself, the other legs fling back in and you have to sort of get down on the floor to reposition it. They're both great designs, both of them work brilliantly, but by comparison, this one hasn't got clips, it's just a magnet. You open it up, pull the legs out, pop it down, finish with it, closed, bang, done. It's also got like a little input port on this as well that you could use to plug something in while this is on. I'm not sure what you'd use that for, but it is a feature there if you want to use it. As far as performance goes, the Jackery panel is 100 watts, the POWEROAK panel is 120 watts, so the POWEROAK panel is slightly bigger. We plugged them both in exactly the same conditions at exactly the same time and kept them pointing at the sun for as long as we possibly could. At best we was getting, it was a clear sunny day, but it is the winter, so it's not as good as summer, I'm led to believe, I'm not sure, but anyway the conditions were the same. The Jackery panel, the 100 watt Jackery panel was giving 75 watts, the 120 watt POWEROAK panel was giving 85 watts, so you'd expect the POWEROAK to give more power anyway because it's a bigger panel, but it does mean that the Jackery panel was ever so slightly more efficient. So 75 watts from 100 watts, 75%, 85 watts from 120 watts, 70-ish%. So yeah, the Jackery panel was slightly more efficient, however, the POWEROAK is going to charge up 1 hour quicker. So at those input wattages, the POWEROAK would charge up 1 hour quicker than the Jackery would power up. So that is it on panels. As far as charging up from 12 volt, it's a bit difficult because I know the POWEROAK will charge up from 12 volt, but when I use the 12 volt in the van that's connected to my leisure batteries, when I plug either of them into the ignition, they don't get as high a voltage that they're getting for charging either on solar or plugged into the main. So I think the Jackery was about 20 watts coming in once it had got to 90%. The POWEROAK was only at 8 watts coming in when it got to 90%. So I think either of them would take a hell of a long time to charge to 100% on 12 volt. But if you are in a van conversion and you've got a DC to DC charger, i.e. something that's taking your voltage from your engine battery, up in that voltage, sending it to your auxiliary battery, and then you plug it into a 12 volt port that's running off your auxiliary battery that's now at say 14.6 volts, they charge to 100% really, really quickly. I know to a lot of you that won't make sense, but just a tip for vanners, if you've got DC to DC, plug it in on your leisure side when you're driving and it will charge quicker than if you plug it in to your starter battery, if that makes sense. Right, finally then, discharge time. Can't say that, Louise. Finally then, which one runs out quickest? Which one lasts the longest? I was expecting them to be almost the same, and this is why I talked about the battery voltages that are inside each of them earlier, because the Jackery actually outlasted the POWEROAK. Now it's not by much, and you do have that extra 18 watt hours that does make a difference, but when I run the fridges, when I run the fridge on them and run them down, the Jackery did outperform the POWEROAK by about an hour with a 35 watt fridge running off it. I'd expect it to outlast it by half an hour, so it is slightly more efficient. Now whether that's because it's brand new out the box and the POWEROAK's already done some work, I don't know. I don't think it's enough to really worry about, but the Jackery did come in slightly better than the POWEROAK. Right then, the big one, as for which one we would purchase if we were to be buying these. Now I should say neither one of these has paid for us to make this video, but we have been sent at some stage both of these products and the relevant solar panels for free, so you could say we're completely unbiased. So when it comes to performance, charge rates, discharge rates, all that kind of thing, I don't think there's enough of a difference to really warrant buying one over the other one. And aside from the extra sockets on the POWEROAK, there's a few things on the Jackery that would make us lean towards the Jackery, and I'll just quickly run through what they are, just because they might affect other people's buying choices when looking between the two products. So the first thing is the charging input port. Now the fact that this one's on the front, which means I can tuck it into a corner and not have to keep pulling it out every time I want to change how I charge it or plug it in, does make a huge difference for us. And I know it only sounds like something small, but when you're in a van and you've got it tucked away in a corner and you've got to keep crawling under somewhere to do that, it does become a bit of a problem. The handle, obviously for Emily, for carrying it around, she much prefers that handle. I know again it's only a small thing, but when you're using these things all of the time, the small things do make a difference. The solar panel, the ease of setting up that solar panel, again, just makes it more enjoyable to use. Now, I'm not saying the POWEROAK panel's bad, I still stand by that it's a good design, but the Jackery panel, even though it is less wattage, so it's going to take slightly longer to charge, the ease of setting that up is just a big plus for me. The next thing, and I haven't touched on it yet, is the cooling fan. Now they've each got a cooling fan that kicks in when you plug them in at 240 volt or when you're using high amount of power coming out. Because I do all my editing on this, that cooling fan's on quite a lot of the time. The cooling fan on the Jackery is just quieter and it kicks in less. So when you're in a van and you've got diesel heater and that cooling fan running, it gets quite noisy. So I know again it's something small, but the cooling fan being on less is a big difference for us. And then again, I'll mention that tiny, slightly better performance. It's like I say, it's not much worth worrying about, but if you add it onto the other little things that we like about the Jackery, we'd probably go for that. POWEROAK, I mean, if you're building this in, it's a better shape, it's square, you can put that handle down. The problem with the handle, I don't know if Emily mentioned it, is they do get jammed sometimes. Dirt and dust collects up in there and it gets stuck in, so that can be a bit of an issue. But if you were to be building it in, it is smaller, more compact and more square. So that might be a positive on the POWEROAK side, but for us, we'd be going with the Jackery. It's an excellent product, they're both great. Would I recommend this? Absolutely 100%, yes I would. I know it's an expensive addition to a van conversion, but if you're looking for a simple power source or a decent backup power source, I cannot recommend the Jackery enough. We will leave all the links in the description for the Jackery and the panel. They've not been in the UK very long, go and check them out. Thank you very much for watching. I know there's been a lot of information at the end. I've waffled on more than enough now. And as usual, if you like this video, please do consider hitting the subscribe button, ding the bell, give us a like, and I will see you guys on the next one.